In this lesson, we will learn about path animation. So yes, we can animate objects along a path or curve in Maya, which is super cool because we can then use this to save time when we need to animate, let's say, a flying mechanism or perhaps a car driving down a street in our set. And let's go ahead and stick with that second example of a car driving through our environment. Let's see if that car needed to make a turn around a corner. Well, if we had to hand key that movement, it'd be super challenging to get it to look just right. Whereas if we were to simply create a trajectory for that car to travel along, you can see how much time that would save. So let's go ahead and learn about path animation, how it works in the software. What we'll do is go ahead and create a curve first for our mech to fly along. We'll head over to Create, and we'll grab the CV Curve tool, going to the option box. This time we want to work with a smooth curve. Otherwise, we'd get some very mechanical movement as we cause the mech to fly through our set. So let's say we go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and grab the 3-cubit curve option. You could also reset the tool to grab that same option. And then once we've done that, we'll then jump to our top view. So I'll go ahead and press the space bar, go to the top view. Let's say we go ahead and just create a quick curve for our mech to travel along. So we'll just create a few points here. What's nice is that after we have created our path, we could actually go in and modify it after the object has been constrained to it. So no worries. If you don't quite like the shape of your path, you could always change it afterwards. What I'd like to do is jump back to the perspective view from here because I don't like this shape too much. Let's say we go ahead and fix it a bit. Otherwise, the flight that our mech would go through would look very awkward. So we're just going to kind of reshape this just a bit. Fantastic. Alright, so that's much better. If anything, I think we can go ahead and take a few more points and pull them away from the starting point just to lengthen this path a bit more. Fantastic. Alright, so the next step is to constrain the object. Now let's say we do this. Right now we're viewing our orthographic cameras. Let's go ahead and hide those. We'll go to our show menu and turn off cameras. You'll also notice that we can select our 3D texture node. So I'd recommend just going in and hiding that. We'll go to the visibility channel. We'll set that to a value of 0 or type in off. That way we can grab the global node and constrain that to our path without having to be concerned with the 3D texture node. Fantastic. So with our global node selected, we'll then go ahead and shift select our path. And now we're ready to head to animate. We'll move down to motion paths, attached to motion path. We'll have a look at our options in the attribute editor, so no worries. Let's go ahead and see what happens when we use the default settings. We'll go ahead and choose attach. Alright, so our mech, yes, he's following along the path, but there are a few flipping issues, and he's also laying on his back and then his stomach. Let's see if he goes back to his back again. Yes, so this isn't too cool, right? But we'll get this looking much better in no time. Also, keep in mind that the animation is the length of our animation range. So you can see the animation by default goes from 1 to 300 because that is our current range. If we were to adjust our playback range to, let's say, 100, and then if we were to constrain the mech or whatever object we would like to this path, then our animation's length would be from 1 to 100. But we can actually change that in the graph editor. I'll go ahead and show you how. Before we get to the graph editor, however, let's go ahead and make sure our mech is facing the right direction. So how do we do that? Well, with the mech selected, we can go ahead and press Ctrl-A to jump to our attribute editor. From there, we'll find our motion path tab. Fantastic. So at the top, we see our U value. This is the percentage along the path. So you can see once we get to 300, we get to a value of 1. But we'll go ahead and change that in the graph editor. And then we can choose to have the mech follow meaning that he'll follow the orientation of the path, which is what happens now. If we go ahead and turn off follow, only his position will follow this trajectory. All right, so we'll go ahead and leave that on. Parametric length. This is what determines if the animation will move according to the spacing of your CVs along the curve, or if it will just move at a constant rate along your path. So if I were to go ahead and press F8 to go back to object mode, with this off, it's going to look at the spacing of your CVs. With this on, your animation will move smoothly along the path. So it really depends on what you're aiming for. If you plan on using your CVs as a way of creating the initial timing and spacing of your path animation, well then go ahead and make sure that this is off. I'm going to leave it on though, because I kind of like the constant speed. And then we'll most certainly change the speed once we get into the graph editor. But let's say we go ahead and fix the angle of our mech now. So as of right now, you can see our world up type is set to object up. What we want is to use the scenes up axis. So let's go ahead and switch this to scene up. Fantastic. So already this is looking much better, right? Now we just need to make sure he's facing in the right direction. So if you notice, before we constrained our mech, he was actually facing in the positive Z direction, right? So all we need to do is go to make sure that our front axis is Z instead of X. And now he's facing the right direction along our path. And notice there are no longer any flipping issues, which is super cool. Sweet. And then we can choose to inverse our up axis or front axis if we would like. We could also animate a bank, which is a way of having the object naturally twist and tilt along our curve. And then if we'd like to push it a step further, I mean, take a look at these parameters we have. Our front twist, I'll hold down control and drag with the left mouse button to interactively change this parameter. You'll see that we're able to adjust the twist along our path to offset the animation if we would like. How cool is that? So we essentially have XYZ control here. Cool. So that's basically a look at our settings. Now, let's go ahead and jump to the graph editor to finish up. Let's go ahead and kind of speed up the animation. And we'll also make sure that the rate is constant as he flies along this trajectory. I'll go ahead and press the F key. The first thing we'll do is go ahead and set our interpolation to linear. Let's go ahead and grab our keys and we'll go ahead and use the linear option. That way he's moving at a constant rate. And now let's go ahead and grab this last key here. Instead of having this timed at 300, we could have this timed at 100. So we'll go to our frame stat and set it to that. And now watch this. When he starts to fly, you'll notice that he's going to fly much faster now. How cool. So we can then go ahead and set our end to 100, and there we have it. So in this lesson, we've learned about path animation in Maya. By the way, if you'd like to remove your object from this path, simply go ahead and grab the object connected, and then you can go ahead and highlight the channels that are connected to the path, right-click and choose Break Connections. So that's one way. Or you can go ahead and trash your motion path node. You can just go ahead and grab it right here from the channel box, paste in your Select by Name field. Let's make sure it is set to that by going to the drop down to the left. And then you can just go ahead and hit Enter. Once it's selected, just delete it. And now your object is no longer connected. And that's the safer way of doing that because that cleans up any unwanted nodes. But again, in this lesson, we've learned about path animation in Maya.